business. It's how we get our start, how we make our way, how we pay our bills, and it's also how we get burned. Crazy bosses, backstabbing employees, theft, fraud, incompetence, and the fine print. So many unknowns in business. How will you guard against them? On the Mysteries of Business video podcast, we unravel tough cases to show you the danger lurking underneath. Will you learn the lessons from our panel of experts? Today, in our series Hacked, Cybercrime and Insecurity, when hackers take your data hostage and demand payment, it's too late to come up with a backup plan. You better take care against ransomware. Hello everyone, thanks for joining us for this episode of our series Hacked, Cybercrime and Insecurity. I'm Rob Emmett, and with our panel of experts as well. Today we'll be talking about ransomware, which is a kind of hack that is unfortunately becoming more and more well-known. But first, let me introduce our panel. Vince Mazza is the CEO of Guard Street Partners, a cybersecurity firm that assists businesses in proactively protecting their data and other assets and provides assistance in cybersecurity emergencies. Next, Mary Erlane is the owner of Peak Development Strategies, through which she coaches and consults with small business owners to develop a solid foundation and healthy organizational culture and strategy. Anna Maria Vitti Welch is the president of the Vitti Companies and is a business insurance broker who helps clients sort through the sometimes overwhelming options in insurance to cover their risks and to have peace of mind. And I'm Rob Emmett. I'm the owner of Win-Win Productions. I'm a video director and editor. I help companies make a good impression using video. Now, in our shows, we start out with a case. And this case involves some issue in a small business setting that either has the potential to lead to disaster or already has. And after that, I read through the case. Our panel of experts pulls from their different specialties to analyze the case, point out what went wrong, and how they would have helped the company navigate the situation. So today's case involves a hostage situation in which the hostage is some important data, and the situation could have been avoided. So I'll read the case. Here's how the crime went down. Ransomware. The word had made Sarah's heart sink. As the IT director of her company, she was the point person for anything wrong with email or internet communications. Monday morning, she started receiving phone calls from staff, salespeople, and the plant supervisors alike that they could not get into their email or CRM accounts. They were all seeing the same mocking message on their screens. You've been hacked and your computer has been locked. If you want access again, you need to pay us $500,000 in Bitcoin by tomorrow at noon, or else all your data will be automatically erased. Sarah had read about ransomware attacks, but never seen one herself. Now it had hit her own company, and everyone had been waiting on her all week to sort it out. Fortunately, Sarah had made sure each department had backups to all data. The deadline had passed yesterday, they had not paid the ransom, and the ransomware did erase all their data. However, Sarah had finished restoring all data from the backups this morning. The staff had the emails back, and operations were humming along again like usual. She actually felt quite good about her first ransomware attack. With everyone following the right protocols of her backup plan, ransomware hadn't been more than an annoyance. Then Sarah's office phone rings. It's the head of the sales department. They have their emails, but they can't find their client contact information or any details about proposals, sales, or follow-up calls. All that should be back with the CRM, Sarah says. Well, it's not there, he replies. Your department was backing up the CRM too, right? You made sure your emails and your sales data was backing up every day. That was part of the protocols I trained you all on, Sarah says. What protocols, he asks. You know I've only been here 4 months, right? Sarah's heart begins to sink again. Within the hour, it was clear. Sales hadn't followed the protocols. They hadn't been backing up their sales data. They had no idea when their next meetings were, what prospects wanted, or where they were in the pipeline. They would need to rebuild the pipeline and all client information from scratch now. After a tense meeting with the executive staff, Sarah sits quietly in her office, stunned. $500,000 in Bitcoin? That was starting to look like a bargain. If this had been your client, Vince, what would be your first move?
Sarah did a lot right. However, I would have looked at, do you have an incident response team? And if she didn't, she should have assembled one very rapidly, unfortunately, reactively. She went through, they got the backups. Had there been an incident response team and plan in advance, it would not have been a surprise that the sales department didn't back up their data. So at that point, I still would not have recommended yet that $500,000 in Bitcoin, but I at this point I would put a plan in place, see how much this really would have cost. I would never recommend paying a ransom, but I'm sure that if she reached out to that attacker, he or she would have graciously accepted the $500,000 or more to get that data back. But I would advise the client, all right, let's get organized for the next time, lick your wounds, and move on, and now harden your cyber posture with various tools and training and policies and so forth.
Mm-hmm. How about the rest of you?
I would not have waited 1 minute, because I would have called the insurance agent to ask them if I had ransomware coverage. Again, that's a coverage that you need to add onto a cyber policy. And then what would happen is we would call the insurance company, and they would connect Sarah with someone who can help her. Like you were talking about, a response team. What are the checklists? They would have given her everything that she should be doing, and go from there. Again, how much coverage did she have also? So if she didn't and someone called me, I would have them call Guard Street or a cybersecurity company for sure. Because again, I had a non-for-profit that paid. It was a very small amount a few years ago, and then a couple months later they came back. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure, Vince, you can say the same thing, that an easy target for this will come back for sure.
You know what? Within 12 months, this company has a 68% chance of being hit with another ransomware attack. And 46% of the time, it's the same party that attacked them. So that person will be back and ask, I'm being sarcastic when I say this, but we'll say, hey, you want your sales data back? But there's, unfortunately, that's a high probability. So it's good to have the insurance, but okay, you've been hit now. Let's get the plan in effect so that you can avoid being hit. And if you ever are hit again, you don't miss a beat. You've got a plan in place.
For me, I think I come into this later. There's an accountability issue. There's a checks and balances issue, because the sales department has not been backing up information and, pretty much everything that the case study indicated. And there's a lapse in leadership and management there that needs to be addressed. But I'm further down the road. I'm not on the emergency response team. However, I would be taking good notes so that if we are consultants in this organization, we will focus time and attention on this with the parties from ownership all the way down to Sarah and beyond, to help them, bring them around, so that it sounds more like when, not if, when this happens again, a different response is in place.
And just backing up, Vince, how do these attacks happen? How does it work?
Well, 95% of cyber attacks originate through email. So it could have been, say, a phishing email. Somebody clicked on an attachment or clicked on a website link, and malware was dropped into the network, and then it worked its way into the entire network, the email, and so forth, and holding it ransom. Typically, it originates through email. Another way would be, say, the company was not practicing solid cybersecurity, including providing updates and patches on their network. it's very common for cyber criminals to use their own scanning tool to scan a company and see if there's openings, essentially ports open, and then they drop their malware or ransomware in there. And I'd say a third way, and this is happening quite frequently, is it might be an inside job. It very, very well could have been planted from an errant employee or vendor. And those would be three of the most common ways that ransomware comes into play.
Mm-hmm. In the news, we've heard some examples of ransomware attacks against larger companies, like a pipeline and some others. Which version of ransomware is going on there? Do you know?
Well, I think the in terms of type, it could be a locker type where they just lock you out of your having access to your data. You can avoid that with proper backups and validating backups. But you're right. I mean, ransomware has been the in vogue method of attacking this year. I mean, in the last 12 months, it's up 715%. This is the way to go. And there's a big payout for pursuing ransomware. In fact, the biggest payout of all time was with an insurance company this year, where CNA paid $40 million ransom. So it's a big payout.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And why is it so common? What's going on that's made it so common?
One of the reasons is, well, the payout. Your chances of being caught are far less than 5%. But cryptocurrency is up about 300%, or it was up 300% last year. It's still very high. I think it's roughly double from where it was 6 months ago. And the common form of payment is cryptocurrency, so that's very attractive for a cyber attacker. And with remote employees, that the security isn't set up properly or completely, that makes these types of attacks very easy. One of the reasons that ransomware is so high is because there's something called ransomware as a service. You can buy ransomware as a service on the dark web for $30, and now you're a cyber attacker. So it's unfortunately become easier to use this form of attack.
So it's like buying an app. You can just buy an app that does it for you.
Pretty much.
Wow.
A whole toolkit to tell you how to do it.
Wow.
Yeah. Scary.
And that's why I say, if you do not have cyber coverage or don't know if you have it or not, please check, and also check if you have ransomware coverage added to that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And who's you all deal with businesses and business owners, maybe some of them who have been through this sort of thing, but who is the most commonly targeted victim? And why is that, from Vince, your knowledge, but also Mary and Anna Maria, from what you know about the industry? Why do people get targeted?
I'll start really quick and then hand it off. But small businesses feel that, I'm too small. I don't have as much to give or lose. And unfortunately, that is exactly why they're targeted, because they don't have the defenses in place, or they haven't established their partners yet. So that's a major target. 70% hit the small businesses.
Yeah, and then I'll just add to it. I just think that people feel that, they're not going to get that much out of me. Why would they want to come to me instead of someone that's got billions of dollars? And as you can see, they don't care, and they're getting to these people that have billions of dollars. So again, I just feel that people don't feel it's not going to be me.
I would agree. It's the small business owner. And they even lay more vulnerable because they don't typically have the wherewithal and stores of money to even be able to withstand something like this and recover, especially if they have not mitigated the risk with the coverage that Anna Maria provides. So this can take the livelihood of a small business owner, which reaches, down into employees and family members, and just literally rip the business right out from under them because they can't withstand the hit.
The reality is, though, for the small business, you do not have to spend a lot to have the proactive tools in place. And you just, a lot of people don't realize that. And I'm telling you, that's the case. If you do something, if you add one layer of security, you're 5 times less likely to be hit with a ransomware attack.
Absolutely.
And that's why even my company hired Guard Street to do a penetration test. And even our IT, who Vince spoke to, we now have them checking monthly and even training us. So I'm sure, Mary, you can kind of talk about training as far as, why it's so important to not just train once a year or twice a year, but.
Sure. I think there's also metrics in place and accountability. The sales team in this, it's not surprising that in this particular case, it's the sales team, because for some reason I run into the sales team being the ones that don't want to update CRM and don't perhaps want to follow protocol, especially also sales is this constant moving target, and it just isn't the focus. And, I hear, I actually have had clients, they got to put that stuff in the CRM. They gotta. But there isn't a whole lot of management. There's not a whole lot of metrics, consequences, accountability, scheduling, and they're just running. And I can see that's probably one of the most vulnerable points is business development in a company. So, there's a lot of training and development and people understanding the why behind backups, as opposed to it's just an annoying task I have to do, is actually attaching the why to this. And I suspect somewhere along the line that kind of faded away. And it wasn't a real strong part of the individual who only had 4 months of anybody who could have been following protocols too early to develop bad habits. You really had an opportunity there to have somebody really driving the protocols.
Let's talk about what are the cybersecurity controls then. I don't know, Mary, do you want to start from the people side? What are your thoughts on if you were to set up a business the right way and a system the right way, how would you advise a company?
Well, the first one would be, from my perspective, the training and development, not just one time, but revisiting it on a frequent basis. The second being is bringing Vince and Anna Maria in early to educate them, offer them the possibilities of, to whatever degree they wish to mitigate the risk, risk from actually having an event. And then on Anna Maria's part, the risk that, it's going to cost this much if you want to mitigate the risk this far, and so on and so forth, so that they can make the educated choice. But then you get busy and you grow. And typically what happens is they get lazy, they get into the grind, they get into the groove. And I think that's when they lay most vulnerable, is when they begin to really achieve those early successes and they get hungry for more successes, but forgot the foundation that they built in the first place. And that foundation needs to be shored up on a regular basis.
One thing I would add to that is, a lot of our clients talk about their lack of sleep at night because of things like this. And when Mary's talking about the foundation and training, I also think of proper planning avoids poor production, and putting together a document where you understand your crown jewels of the business. What do we have to lose? What do we need to protect? And it makes it so easy for employees to then follow. Then it's managing it. but organizing or planning out those policies and procedures up front. Hey, look, we have to do our backup both in the cloud and locally. How often do we have to do it? How often do we have to verify that it's being done? I mean, simple things like that should be in place, and that's foundational to me.
Mm-hmm. And then I think also it's kind of like I would ask your agent, if you can't get a hold of them, what is my cybersecurity response phone number, 800 number that I can call?
I mean, in those policies that I'm talking about, we offer a customized, but also a standard base. What you're talking about, the phone numbers, the email addresses, the emergency, all of that is part of this plan. And employees should read it. They have to, and sign off on reading it and have a copy,
right,
so that they know what's going on.
So I thought of an interesting contrast, and that is HR law. HR laws have been put in from a federal as well as a state level, and even there's some specific things like City of Chicago, and those are all laid out, and they're to be followed. And then there's an employee handbook in place, and so on and so forth, by which Anna Maria then can pick up and write specific policy around that. We don't have this kind of guidance, but the same discipline that you just drew attention to, Vince, that same level of discipline and awareness, even though there isn't a federal or a state law around, written like HR law, but we need that same kind of line by line, law by law, risk by risk attention as a company may take HR law.
Well, the reality is that 60% of small businesses are out of business in 6 months after one of these attacks. Okay. So it goes to that, advanced planning. It is worth the investment in time to set that up.
I agree. Mm-hmm. And also the lack of productivity too. I mean, I can't imagine you being down and then trying to get back up. I mean, it's not like, I don't think people realize that it's not just plugging something in and saying, okay, we're up again.
Right.
Right. Companies that are out of business for 3 days, and I believe that's predominantly for online business, but if we can't get a hold of you, right. I thought there was a 3-day rule that you really run the risk of losing clientele. Mm-hmm.
Imagine being without email for a week. What would that do to your business?
Right.
We can't handle Netflix without for a week. So, I mean,
right.
Imagine having email. What would the cost be? Let's talk to that a little bit. As far as, I don't know, have an IT specialist come in, or have a coach, a trainer come in like Mary, or Anna Marie, you can speak to the cost of policies. What's the actual monetary cost of doing it right? Like, say, for a small business, a ballpark.
Just from a cyber perspective, the way to do it right is to create layers of security and maintain it throughout the year. It's not a set it and forget it. Mm-hmm. So as a broad number, we get this question a lot. How much should I spend, whether it be on training, whether it be on bringing consultants in and so forth? And we advise 3 to 5% of revenue. If you're doing nothing and you apply 1%, that's great. Doing nothing versus doing something, you have 5% less likelihood of getting hit. That's a positive. So we speak in percentages, but depends on the business and the size.
For insurance, it's very, very hard to estimate. I'm going to say a small office that doesn't have doesn't have really e-commerce, for $250,000, I'm going to say about $450 a year. And that's a $250,000 worth of coverage. And that is also with the most comprehensive ransomware, business interruption, the social engineering, cyber liability. that's about it. If you do have e-commerce, of course, it's going to be more because you have more exposure.
And I can guarantee I am not $500,000 in Bitcoin. But I think in my case, it would be hard to quote because how pervasive this issue is. It could be something like a retainer to be talking to the CEO, where then the CEO, if a great mentor, can mentor down. It could be training and development of that sales department or the mid-managers. It would be very, very customized and very focused on not only where the weakness is, the weak link, if you will, in this that created the situation, but also having them discover what their strengths are. If there was loss of a particular employee as a result of this, we can help them get back to work and help find talent. So in my case, I could say thousands of dollars invested, depending on, but it's not an astronomical cost that doesn't just correct this issue, but ends up positioning the company to get stronger in so many other areas.
As we talk, I'm trying to think of, where would my skills fit into this? And I think it's probably more on the training side, because, I've noticed, Vince, and you can speak to this, if you try and lock down a internet or IT network in a business to make it childproof so that like the sales people can't screw it up or whomever leaves the door
It's
open.
always the salespeople, right?
It tends to be, I gotta say.
Love those salespeople.
You try and make it childproof, and sometimes a child is a CEO, right? You try and make it childproof, but then it loses functionality for everybody. They can't do as much with it, right? It seems to be you try and find a balance between making the system useful and giving people access to what they need, so they don't always have to be going asking somebody for access.
It's always a constrained optimization, but life and business are all about boundaries, and managing employees and behavior is about boundaries.
Yeah.
And so those can be made to be, once you're trained, once you're in the groove, it'll be like second nature. It's not a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. And as far as video is concerned, video is a great tool in the sense that, on the one hand, if you're using video for training people to follow some protocols and some boundaries or onboarding them, on the one hand, they can watch the video anywhere in the world. So you can train people anywhere with your protocols using video as a tool, but also everybody sees and hears the same thing. So once you get something in video and everybody sees it, that's the tool you use that's the resource they have to use for training. Everybody's hearing the same directions, as opposed to training one department head to train his people one way, and he alters things a little bit, and it's like a telephone game where he ends up training people a little differently than the other guy or some other department head does, and pretty soon you have different rules for different departments, and you wonder what happened. Video can be a tool for making sure everybody's just hearing the same thing. Well, let's wrap it up here. I know we're kind of coming to the end. I just want to encourage the viewers to follow up with any of us about different areas. Follow up with Vince if you have further questions about cybersecurity or setting up your business with the right technology and the right protocols, as we've talked about. Connect with Anna Maria to discuss cyber insurance. You can have her review your policy to see what's actually in it, because sometimes you think something's in your policy and it's actually not there and you're not covered. So she'll be happy to review a policy for you and give her feedback with her expertise. And then Mary can discuss issues around training your people, as we've talked about, to follow those protocols. And especially if people are going to be working from home still. If you have people working from home, there's an additional layer of vulnerability with people logging in from their home computers, where you have no idea how their home system might be set up. So you need to work through some people management there and some training there. So Mary is good for that. And then also, like we said, video for training and onboarding people into your business and your business culture with these boundaries. Video can be a great tool for that, to communicate it well, and the same for everybody, so everybody stays on the same page. So you can give me a call for that. So I want to thank everybody for joining us, and please watch our other shows in this series. We have one about email spoofing, and another one about training your employees in good cyber protocols. So catch those. You'll go more in depth into those areas. And just remember, in the world of cybercrime and insecurity, almost everyone is vulnerable, and yes, it really could happen to you. So thank you, everyone.